Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Games 311, where we give you our insider takes on the top game industry news stories each and every week. Here's what we're covering today. Gamers are watching games more than actually playing them. So there's some new research and some very big games that have come out the last couple of weeks. League of Legends being one of them. Worlds, great numbers on Worlds. So we also have the product guy here. Adam is here. And so we're going to check in on some of the most recent launches with Pokemon, Capybara, Archero 2, and Chris's new favorite MOBA, Supervive. So lots to get into on how those games are doing. So hi, everyone. I'm Jen Donahoe. And on the squad RPG that we call This Week in Games, I fill in on the marketing and publishing role. Chris.
Oh, me? It's my turn.
Early morning.
So I am the corporate strategy / trash talker. That's my role in life right now. So there we go.
Oh, well, look, we literally came up with these new titles. So this is Rusty. I'm a ex-product guy turned, I would say I'm a founder support guy. That's what I do almost every day. I'm a founder support hotline.
Founder Sherpa.
Emotional support animal. There we go. Perfect.
Less emotional. I like to support more tangible, but emotional if they need to have some emotional support, yes. But don't
if
call
they
them
need a hug.
too often.
If they need a hug, Mishka will be there.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect.
In my comfy Lululemon shirt, I'll give them a bear hug.
And I'm Adam Telfer. I am a product person, product guy. Let's go with that.
Yeah. And Phil is also off this week. Who would be our economy monetization guru and bean counter, right? I guess would be what Phil is.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
And Laura, who's the puzzle queen.
She is product puzzle queen for sure. Absolutely.
Regarding Phil, he was in Finland, and I knew about this because he sent me a Slack message. Like he was working with a client, but still, like I'm going to Stockholm in February. I might send him also a Slack message and not meet him. No, I wouldn't do that. I will meet him. But like, you can't be that busy, Phil. You should have said hi.
I was just in LA and I saw Jen. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. We hung out, handed him a jacket, had dinner with a friend.
Talked
a little shop. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Phil's such a cat person.
So the Game Awards are happening next week on December 12th. If you're in LA, come and join me at a watch party because I don't want to sit in a seat for 4 hours at the actual theater. So there's a watch party at the 100 Thieves headquarters in Culver City, presented by Planet Play. So sign up. There's a link in the Slack channel. We'll also put it in the show notes to show up. So, coming to the 100 Thieves headquarters is a watch party in itself. Cress came to the last happy hour that we did there, and it's pretty cool. So come on by next week.
Such an awesome name for a company, by the way, 100 Thieves.
I know.
Shout out to that.
That's swag,
that's a creative
too.
Name.
Yeah.
You've heard of Heroic Labs by now, and we keep talking about them because you need every edge to be successful in today's market. Heroic Labs game stack is built like a brick house. You got the Nakama, their backend game server, Hero, their game development framework, Satori, their live op service, and last but not least, Heroic Cloud to provide massive scalability. Heroic Labs is a battle-tested partner, and their tech enables you to be flexible, creative, and scale for success. Focus on your game, avoid tech risks, grow your product with scalable live ops, and save a big chunk of cheese, all with Heroic Labs.
I got a lot of shills. So number one, this is the big one. So we did a hybrid casual playbook with Meta, and it's out. So Deconstructor Fun and Meta worked on a hybrid casual playbook. There's a link in the description below. We'll be doing a lot of episodes with hybrid casual publishers, Say Games, Roll-It, Crazy Labs, you name it. So they'll be coming in on the podcast in the future month, but the playbook is out, link in the description. And then talking about the reports. Our friends at AppsFlyer released their State of the App Monetization 2024 report. So for the first time, why this report is interesting is they have released content around monetization models. So you will see ROAS and ARPU benchmarks for in-app ad games, for in-app purchases, for hybrid, for subscription models, if you're an app person. There's paid and organic revenue shares for several different models. There's daily active users and paying user trends, et cetera, et cetera. So really good report. I suggest you check it out. It's the State of App Monetization by AppsFlyer 2024. And then on a podcast side, we've been popping. So App Lovin was on the podcast for the first time. We were on the the blacklist for a while after, one of our co-hosts of the past was making critical remarks, and
What?
he did not like it.
We make critical remarks of people in the game
that sometimes
industry.
happens. But we're friends again. So Daniel Chernyakhovsky, he's been in App Lovin, I think 9 years, so really OG. He joined and kind of discussed the 7 different trends that define 2024. And it's interesting because he brought some of the things that they see in their data, which is different than other data providers see, and they do have a lot of data. And then released a podcast today with Sergey Vasyuk. He's a live ops director, product guy, if you will, at Wargaming, also OG at Wargaming. And he sent me this book calling Running Successful Live Services Game a few months ago. We recorded the podcast. I skimmed through it, read some portions, used AI. I'm not going to lie. I used AI, but I have the ability to actually invite him on a podcast. And we had a lot of discussion about the thesis he had. So check that one out. I know people are enjoying it. And then thank you for all the feedback regarding the Sunday roast idea. So I got several messages of executives saying like, yeah, let's do it on Sunday. We'll come in before PGC. So PGC is on Monday. They will come Sunday before. We got the Soho House, and it will be a small gathering, about 40 good conversationalists, founders, execs, etc. We'll gather for a supper club, and we'll do also a bigger event, a mixer at the Soho House in Shoreditch later that week. So that's all my shills. A lot of stuff coming in.
Yeah,
Cool.
I will give one more shill. I was at the party for Sensor Tower Adjust last night, the Jingle Jam holiday party. Can't say that I really support the name, but nonetheless, it was good to see people back in. Joseph Kim was there.
Nice.
Some other friends of the podcast, but it was a cool event. Sensor Tower is working overtime to get these things going. So stay tuned
Nice.
for more stuff.
Yeah.
Good.
Invite us to stuff. We show up. All right. Any corrections?
I got a little bit of hate from Mr. Barry Dorf. I love you, Barry. Don't worry about it. I was joking. It's a joke. You're still my boy. We've known each other since 98. So I'm not giving, because I got completely destroyed by not being invited to your lunch. I'm still your buddy later.
Speaking a little bit of Barry Dorf, I let him know that we may have been discussing him on the podcast. He's so lovely. But did you guys watch the Madden documentary on Amazon Prime?
No, I actually have been meaning to watch it. A lot of OG folks from EA
Yes.
were there on it, right?
So it was my Thanksgiving Day binge. There's 4 episodes. I'm going to warn you, it's a little bit infomercially. And so the history is amazing. And then what they're doing today was like an infomercial for Madden. I was a little annoyed at the tone shift that they kept having, but fascinating. Like highly recommended even if you're not into like Madden and American football, just the history of like how they came up with, the brand and how they thought about, the game. And now we have the battle with 2K, just really cool, like history. So highly recommend it.
I've never played Madden in my life. I have to say, like, the thing is, I watch all the Netflix, like documentaries, like the Hard Knocks is another one. And
Yep.
like all these documentaries that came in, the quarterback and the wide receiver, like all that stuff is great. But for some reason, I don't know how to play Madden. I've tried. Like, I played it once and I was like, I don't even know how to play American football, but I enjoy the drama of American football, but I just can't play it. I have no idea of the rules.
It's complicated, yes. And by the way, Hard Knocks is on HBO, and which is actually really a great series.
Fantastic.
May I point out the American football Dallas Cowboys helmet signed by Emmitt Smith behind me? So as a football fan and a soccer
I
player,
actually just saw that the first time.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's impressive. That's very impressive.
Is Cowboys like the most hated franchise? Is it like the Maple Leafs of hockey?
No.
That's the Patriots.
yeah, the
Oh,
Patriots.
Patriots is.
Now
Yeah.
it's Chiefs, but before it
Adam,
was
speak
for
my
a long
language.
time.
Is Dallas like Maple Leafs?
Dallas like Maple Leafs. I don't know.
Yeah,
what that
like
means.
Toronto Maple Leafs. How their
No,
position.
but like the Maple Leafs are like the joke of the NHL in terms of the team that spends so much money that's in
the
a
most
very
funded.
great city that can
Yes.
never win. Versus Dallas at least holds on to this dynasty that they had in the 90s.
Got it.
Right? Like they were the dynasty of the 90s versus the Patriots in, the 2010s. And now the Chiefs are the dynasty of the day that everybody hates.
So Adam interpreted this to Finnish, which is referring to hockey. Now everybody knows what this means.
Now people understand.
But Toronto Net, when was the last time I had a dynasty? Like
I
think the last time one was the late 60s. So
let's
I think
move
that's
the fuck on. Okay, what the fuck is happening?
Okay.
Oh God.
Let's talk Fortnite.
All right. So Fortnite just wrapped its latest season, and they saw a new record with 14.3 million players, marking an all-time peak. 3 million people streamed the concert concurrently, which sets another all-time record for Fortnite concerts. So it was Snoop Dogg debuting his new single. Eminem was there, and then Ice Spice, and then Juice WRLD, who is a rap star who has passed away. And so they posthumously released a new release from him. He has a new album out. I don't know how you do this when you're, sorry, I'm not, if it's, 90s alternative and Metallica that I'm in. So anything in the rap world or any music of today, I'm completely out of it. But what was cool is that they did another music video with this rap star who has passed away. And it was actually really beautifully done. And so clearly this formula of using concerts and music artists to get players involved to create these moments, they had a Snoop Dogg perform live at the beginning of the season. And so at the end of the season, it was more of the traditional, you go in and you play in the in-game world. So huge numbers for them. 7 years and going, Fortnite's still kicking. So it seems that there's this trend of gamers actually spending more time watching videos about gaming on YouTube and Twitch than playing them themselves. So that's according to a new report from Media Research, who says that gamers spend 7.4 hours a week gaming and 8.5 hours a week watching game-related videos. So that's just kind of interesting in general, and it kind of begs the question, hey, can you actually monetize some of your gaming content on your YouTube channels? ? Maybe. But the other thing that was really interesting is League of Legends Worlds happens. So if you don't know, every year the World Championships happen. It moves around the world. There were 50 million peak viewers globally. Now, let's just say that 43 million of those were in China. But 6.7 million viewers were outside of China. And this was the highest total viewership since 2021 and the all-time high record for viewership outside of China. So that 6.7 million was the highest it's ever been. Now, remember, I just said for Fortnite, it was 3 million. So again, just to keep that. So, Chris, I just wanted to check in. This is all because of Arcane, right?
Of course it was. Of course. But did you know that the second season of Arcane has been censored in China because of LGBTQIA plus something content? Did you know that?
I did know that, and I wasn't actually going to bring it up, but since you did, as a member of that community, it is obviously, it's kind of sad. It happens all the time, though, with that kind of content. So they took out any of the Caitlyn Vi relationship stuff, completely censored out. Bummer.
Where was this event, the World Championship?
I don't remember where it was this year.
Why is it not in China? 86% of your audience is
it will be next year, but it rotates
around China.
But you know what's crazy about this stat is this actually foots almost perfectly with the 3 to 5% monetization thing in the US, right? Because if only 13% of the audience is outside of China watching this thing, if you a 60-40 split, which is I think is a lot, 40% for the US, rest of the world is the rest. That's 5% of the overall viewership is in the US, right? Funny how that kind of those numbers work. But yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Okay, Mr. Riot, let's come back at me.
Let's move forward.
Yeah.
PlayStation Portable. So Bloomberg was reporting that Sony's in the early stages of developing a portable console that would play PlayStation 5 games on the move. But it's likely years away from launch, and the company could still decide against bringing it to market. This is paired against recent reports that Microsoft is mulling over a handheld device as well. But I think you should start to channel your inner Cress here temper your expectations. And also kudos to Brett Hoffman, who did call out a bunch of these numbers. The handheld market, Steam Deck is a beloved console. I use it all the time, but Omdia estimates it at about 3 million units sold life to date so far. So far, last I've checked with any of the sort of indie streams that talk about percentage of engagement, we're talking about low single digits of engagement on the Steam Deck. PlayStation Portal, 500K units, beating expectations, but 500K units. Nintendo Switch is at about 150 million units right now, projected to about 160. So even accounting for just trajectory, these are totally different markets. Sony and Microsoft can totally go after current gen content device late in the life cycle, get some additional revenue, and leverage their existing content, which is better than what they did with PSP and Vita. So could make sense. But let's not pretend this is like a massive new market and a massive opportunity. Eric, you're leaning in. What are you saying? Did I channel my crest here? Was that a good crest?
That's pretty good. You need a little bit more emphasis in your voice, dude. But yeah, I want to be clear. Like, I've actually talked to Sony and Microsoft about this specific issue, and this is more of, despite what they say in marketing, this is a device to improve engagement for existing audiences. This is not a device to go after Nintendo or to expand the audience beyond where they're at right now. This is like, it's just basically a device to support the existing user base. And I think it's a good idea. I said this many times, so I think it's a great idea. I think it'll be an interesting piece of kit.
It's cherry on top.
Yeah,
that's it.
Incremental. Yeah. Maybe it helps with some monetization.
Yeah, increases accessibility to the device. That's pretty much it. All right, last one in the headlines. This is something that I saw on LinkedIn a ton because everybody was weighing in. And this is Elon Musk's tweet. So, quote, right. Too many game studios that are owned by massive corporations. xAI is going to start an AI game studio to make games great again. So, yeah, as I said, everybody weighed in and we haven't. So I brought this here. You know, journalists weighed in, but they were really hateful. Like, I read PC Gamer was like such a hateful way of describing like Musk. So anyways, the facts about Musk is that he clearly loves games. I think he was like Diablo 4 top 1 player at some point. I don't know how he finds the time. He has all the resources, infinite money almost. He can clearly run several businesses at the same time, even though they're very different from each other. And he has a massive following. So do you guys think that xAI games will be a thing, or is this just Musk trolling again?
I don't particularly care, to be honest. like
you have to weigh in. This was the thing. The whole
I know, like, everyone's just like,
oh my
God, Musk is here. But at the same time, I'm like, look, I think an AI-focused game startup is a good idea. If he can pull together really strong talent that can operate on their own, then absolutely an AI startup right now could make sense. But I don't think he has enough time to do this, right? Like
it would have to be a Web3 game too.
Yeah. No, I don't think he's going to do that. But like an AI game startup absolutely makes sense right now. I don't think he has time to actually manage this. So it's more about, can he recruit the right talent to build the startup? That's it.
We saw what happened with Netflix, right? Like,
this isn't Netflix. This is just like, is this startup going to work?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about investments. Investments, divestments, and M&A. I have one piece. So the investgame.com. So these guys released another report, and it was about European consolidators. So it looked at Embracer Group. Shout out to Embracer Group. Keyword Studio, Stillfront, Team 17, MTG, Pull Up or something. Apparently, this is like a French public company, a publisher, and EG7. So basically, it's a slide deck for finance nerds and who like games. And it is a little bit misleading because everything is compared to the lockdown year. So, of course, things look like shit when you compare it to 2020, 2021, and like even the 2022. But there were some interesting facts, like Embracer Group had 78 acquisitions and spent $14 billion. That's 75% of all pretty much like consolidator capital deployed. And then it had this interesting graph that looks at organic growth. This is a growth the company achieves by increasing output and enhancing sales internally. So basically what they do, how that drives growth versus what they acquire and how that acquired piece overall increased their growth. And when you look at the curves, it pretty much shows that apart from Team 17, the organic growth is down for all the consolidators. So Chris, do you have any comments on this one?
Look, go back to the tapes, right? This is exactly what I said. I said these acquisitions make no sense because they can't do organic growth. Stillfront, particularly Stillfront and Embracer, right? There's just no way that these acquisitions can make games that are contemporary and competitive in this market because the teams that they were acquiring were not great teams, right? With the exception of a few. This was the thesis, right? For all the reasons that I've said millions of times. So yeah, I mean, this makes sense. And you're right. But yeah, if you look at the stock prices of all these things, which I think they missed, they didn't do this in the report that I saw anyway. I mean, it's even more dramatic, right? In terms of the fails since 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, and then to add to this, like Eric, you said multiple times that they don't have an organization to drive all these different studios. And essentially what you're trying to do is like when you bring a studio in, it becomes more efficient as it's part of your organization. That creates that organic growth as well. But these studios were kind of like these sort of like just aggregators, kind of like everybody could run the way they wanted. And Stillfront had these like groups around which they built these centers. So clearly that was a strategy that worked in a booming market, but not so much right now. And regarding Embracer Group, there was a news that Asmodee, which is a French, is this a tabletop gaming company?
Yeah.
Yeah, they acquired a tabletop gaming company for billions. Anyways, so it's a subsidiary for Embracer Group, and they raised almost $1 billion through a mix of fixed and floating rate senior secured notes. And additionally, they secured also 150 million of revolving credit facility. So these new raised funds will primarily repay Asmodee's already $1 billion bridge facility. And the financing activity comes as the company prepares for its separation from Embracer Group, scheduled for April 25, amid plans to receive a 400 million loan from parent company. So a lot of money is moving around. Chris, do you know what this all means? It seems like just putting hundreds of millions everywhere.
When can we talk about games?
Yeah, I just want to understand, like, what?
All right.
No, look, I don't know what the hell is happening in Europe that they're still funding this debacle, but I mean, they look like they're refinancing their debt. That's what that looks like. But why people are still investing in this thing? Although Asmodee is a great business, like it is a great cash flow business. It's very solid. It's it's not a gaming business. It's just retail business. So I don't know. They can keep doing what they're doing, but the company's success is based upon the games that they have in development, which we talked about last week, and we'll see if they can execute against those.
All right.
Tencent has acquired a majority stake in Chinese developer Kuro Games. They're the ones that built Wuthering Waves, which I don't think did all that well, frankly. I guess it had a good start. But yeah, their ownership is now like 50%, 51%. So this is basically a owned subsidiary of Tencent at this point. So that happened. Chinese studio Lilith game. I don't even know this game. Did you guys follow Project Party? But anyway, no, I don't remember this at all. But they laid off 40 of their 100 employees for this Project Party team based upon lukewarm performance for the beta test, which again, I had not heard of this game. So I thought that was interesting. They said they haven't canceled the game outright, but they're retooling it. And
so Ubisoft just announced actually yesterday that XDefiant, their Call of Duty-like shooter released in May 2024, is shutting down. So just for like context of performance, they announced about 10 million players 2 weeks through launch. So it was an exciting launch period, and it was roughly similar to the finals in terms of the amount of players that it got. And even Ubi was pushing back through the last 6 months that it was outperforming expectations. But as you could see from data, they lost about 85% of their MAU by August. And then the game continued to fall from there. We covered a lot of the reasons for this in the PvP shooter podcast, but the reality was similar to Spectre, similar to Finals. You just can't go after the king. You can't go after Call of Duty without top-notch differentiation and just going guns blazing with live content. And this is being paired with studios being shut down, unfortunately. So Ubisoft San Francisco and Ubisoft Osaka both which worked on the game, will be shut down. And skeptical eyes there, like San Francisco and Osaka, those cost centers, right?
Wow.
To scale up there for a PvP shooter with the content treadmill just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I totally forgot they were all based here. I mean, a lot of them were based here in San Francisco.
Oh,
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
They raked up.
This one wasn't surprising, unfortunately. This one's another one. And we'll get into a bunch of the news in terms of upcoming PC console games, but it's just like there's another wave of, exciting releases, and we've got to see some of these games stacked out. And unfortunately, just so many of them have that spike and then just shark fin immediately and can't sustain.
I have a question regarding this. Like it seems like when a AAA publisher, like as somebody who's used to publishing paid games, especially in their business model, really evolves around that of, the hype, getting most of your money in the first couple of weeks. Like when they launch free-to-play games, is it so that they just expect the similar type of returns? Like that's how their business models and expectations are built. And when that doesn't happen, it's like no mercy. Like this studio is literally shut down immediately. Like we're talking about weeks.
No, it's not the crux of it. The crux of it is like Ubisoft is fine with a multi-year horizon payback window for a game, right? Like even some premium games have that type of recoup curve. The issue is like when you put all of your marketing budget right on launch, right? On top of the high dev costs, right? You have sunk so deep into your P&L and all of these games live or die based on retention. So usually when I'm looking at these PC console games, it's like, just look at retention. If they have that retention, then we've got something interesting here. But so many of them can create these interesting spikes, like 15 million players in a month is a good number for PC console.
Yeah.
But retention is not there, and then it doesn't matter. So this actually speaks to like my continual point in the back of my mind around there is no effective way that these games can validate retention before launch. And yet they're willing to spend all that dev budget, all that marketing budget on launch.
State the obvious. This is not mobile, right? This is not something you're acquiring users over a time with user acquisition.
It is a very different ecosystem.
Yeah, it's like the expectation is that perhaps they can build it over time or something like that, but that's just not the way it works on console PC. You really got your one shot to attract them and keep them. And it's not working for the majority of these games. It's not something you can just keep reiterating on over time. It's all or nothing, right? Right at launch.
You've got to get that escape velocity at launch to get to a point that you can even sustain, and then we can talk about growth from there.
Apex obviously did a lot of work in the first few months to get that thing back up to speed, but it was a different time and in a different era, and the expectation of the consumer was not where it is now. And so like you just can't replicate that going forward.
Absolutely.
No, it feels like the challenge that they're having is they're getting the eyeballs and they're getting the attention, to your 15 million point. The challenge, very astutely to your point, is retention. And how do you keep them in a world of, players have so many other things happening. So many great games are coming out. How do you keep these people? And I think, on Phil's podcast that he did with the GM of the Teamy studio that's running Delta Force, like the amount of content that they do for live service seems to be one of the ways that you have to win. You've got to just really invest in high quality live ops in order to be, if you're going to do free to play, or you do what Pal World did is, hey, we're going to we're
just not going to give a shit about retention and just be a great premium game. And that's it.
Yeah. And
it's good. It works.
Maybe that's a strategy for maybe not a AAA company, but maybe a AA or a single A company is like, hey, and maybe I'll just get
the problem
30,
that I
40
have
bucks.
with the hey, we're just gonna launch a shit ton of live content is I don't think you validated the value of that live content. So you could end up spending a ton of money on stuff that's not that valuable to players. True. Also, as we're talking about with Supervide and we talked about with Spectre Divide, we're talking about 90 million investments into these games just to get them to launch. And now we're saying, hey, you've got to double up on your live ops. So now we're talking okay, double that number in order to make sure that you can get enough live content, guns blazing at launch. And then still Multiversus, the 2.0 release is a good example of this. They came out guns blazing in terms of content, but underlying all that still was that weaker retention. So you're just kind of ratcheting up your risk if that retention isn't there in the first place.
how do they get a better handle on retention then?
That's a good
How do
question.
people know? I mean, is this the new white whale of like the challenge we're all facing?
This is the thing that, to be honest, like every GDC that I've been talking with a lot of developers that operate in the PC console space, this is the bell that I've been ringing, as well as like the big brainstorm point that I've been having with developers of like, how do we do this better so we can talk about like, we can actually validate retention before launch. I've been talking about this for like 5 years of GDC. It's just been the thing on top of my mind. Let's move on to a little bit more positive news. So Pokemon and the trading card game. So a quick check-in on this. So AppMagic just has been reporting that they have surpassed 200 million since its launch. Looking at Sensor Tower, that's estimated at about 144 million net, obviously 200 million gross after 30 days. And comparing that to Pokemon Go at 200 million net after 30 days. So to this, like Pokemon Go is a monster outcome. This is a monster outcome. It's just incredible.
Look, I mean, it's crushing right now. I'm hoping they can maintain it, right? Like they hit some kind of apex recently, but like it's so high. Like, and I talked to people that are playing the game and they basically feel that they can continue to deliver more and more creatures, I guess, what the fuck you call
Pokemon.
them. And continue to do the upgrade Evo path for this game and keep it going. And I think it's a real testimony, not to Pokemon Company, but to DNA, which I think is the one that's the primary responsible for the design of this thing, which has been long in the works, as we talked about a few weeks ago. So I have far more faith in DNA than I do in Pokemon Company to execute against this type of mobile game. So
if they can operate this like they did with Fire Emblem Heroes, right? Like then we've got something here. They've got all the ingredients. A great launch. Now let's start live operating.
Obviously, Gacha works. Like.
So, Crest, I channeled you and I looked at Sensor Tower in the last 30 days, Tier 1 West. And so Pokemon has jumped to the number 5 top revenue game with 60 million, according to Sensor Tower. So you've got number 1 is Monopoly Go, Royal Match, Roblox, Candy Crush, and then Pokemon, which has now jumped ahead of Last War Survival from the 4X category. So from a marketing perspective, it looks like they're running on 14 ad networks, with AdMob / obviously Google leading the share of voice. When you go into Sensor Tower, you can kind of see the ads of what share of voice are they getting. You can kind of get a sense of like what ads are working for them and, where they're marketing. And so they have a lot of ads with a lot of, a pretty evenly split share of voice, which means that they've got a lot of ads that are working. And basically, the creative kind of writes itself, obviously, especially because there hasn't really been a Pokemon mobile game in the trading card space. Obviously, Pokemon Go is, it's a very different thing that has been out for a very long time. And so, in my head, this is like the easiest game of all time to market, because basically what they keep doing is showing you opening Pokemon packs. They show beautiful cards with all of the cool animation, and then they keep the Pokemon logo on the screen at all time. Again, like it's not rocket science, but it's kind of brilliant. If you're listening, here's my next creative idea is put people in Pokemon costumes like furries and then show them doing UGC things, opening the card packs, right? Like, it's just like, that's the next evolution. And I mean, I was Pluto at Disneyland during, I did this leadership training thing when I used to work at Disney. I got to be Pluto. Honestly, it was actually one of the best experiences of my life to be
really cool. That's
a Disney character.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the quick story on this is, so it's just 20 minutes and you go in the back and it's like super secret and they put you in the costume. I happen to have the body to be Pluto. Like, you have to be a certain size to be each one of the characters. And so all of my other like coworkers were like the shitty characters. Like,
I'm not even touching that, by the way, that comment. But
well, it's your sizing. It's like, how tall are you? Because the costumes are a certain size. Like, you don't change the shape of Pluto. It just happens to be, I fit into that costume. And so, they train you a little bit and you put your hand into the paw and you look through the mouth. And by the way, please don't tell your kids, everyone, that human beings are inside these costumes. You're not allowed to tell them that. But so I go out and it's like sweltering. It's in Anaheim. And this little girl in a wheelchair rolls up and she looks at me and she says, "Pluto, you're my favorite." And inside the costume, I start bawling because for this moment in time, this little girl in this wheelchair completely forgets everything. And the look on her face, I was like, this is the Disney magic right here. And actually, somebody took an old school Polaroid of this because this was like, 2006 or 7 or something like that. And so I still have that. I kind of like put it up and reminds me of like the impact that we have. Sometimes we forget about what we do every day is we make these games that put a smile on people's face and actually kind of bring joy. And so sometimes I think we forget that. Anyway, so that was my segue into why they should put people in Pokemon costumes and film them and put them in ads and make a ton of money. So Pokemon, good job on like basically having creative that writes itself. So let's talk about another game that also has some really interesting marketing. So throwing it back to you, Adam, for what Habby's got going on.
Yeah, so Habby is having a moment with really 2 big launches, right? Capybara Go and Archero 2. So Capybara Go, according to Sensor Tower, sustaining at about 600K a day. Archero 2 launching and reaching similar highs now. And both sort of grew down pretty quick and now sustaining. Capybara Go, very interesting hybrid, sort of idle RPG, and even like casino battler, like very, very randomization mechanics. I'm a big +1 to the 2.5 Gamers podcast. We did a great deconstruction of Capybara Go as well as Archero 2, so definitely recommend their podcast to go deep. It's just showing that there continues to be space to innovate with smart hybridization on mobile. That Capybara Go just shows there's continues to be open lanes. And it's still one to watch. So the one thing is with Capybara Go, if you do look a little bit underneath the numbers, because they did a staggered launch, the US actually came a little bit later. When you start to break out their active player base and revenue, you're seeing some softness there, especially in those countries that they launched in early. So this is something that we need to watch just to see if they can actually stack WoW and DAO and continue to climb from here. But Archero still being now their second launch, still too early to call, but both sort of show very strong launch performance versus Archero and about half the size of Survivor.io.
Just to be clear, Archero 2 is still not launched, right? It's only in selected countries.
I just took a look again at, some of their creative, just wanted to see what was going on. The end cards are super adorable. The look of the characters is really appealing and differentiated. And so I think that was fun. But what was really kind of piqued my interest was one of their top ads from a share of voice perspective looked like it had a code showing you, the different characters in their badass S tier mode. And as many of us know, it can be difficult to input codes directly into a mobile game, mainly because Apple is just kind of a pain in the ass on this. And so I just did a little like sleuthing and I'm like, wait, is that like a real code? And can you actually put that in? And so when you go to a website called gift.capybarago.io, it's a little bit convoluted, but you take your player ID, you go to the code redemption website, you redeem your code, and your rewards pop up inside of your in-game mailbox. So in theory, I actually, love these code capabilities. I've ran a bunch of these tests in the past. And, number one is I was actually at Scopely back in the day when I was on WWE Champions and we would do TV ads with WWE. We would put the codes up on the screen but you could only do it on Android at the time, which kind of like pissed off half our consumers. And that's why I mentioned that Apple was a pain in the ass. But number one is you're able to show like a KPI on engagement for your ads and your execs who want to see, hey, how did these different things do? If you're not doing traditional performance marketing, you can use them in TV ads or you can use them in other kinds of marketing to kind of have a little bit of a performance KPI. And number two is the community absolutely loves this. You've created a treasure hunt for them. Everyone's trying to go collect all the codes. What did this code unlock? Many times they're limited time offers. And so you're incentivizing like engagement on a limited time basis. And the sentiment that comes about is really great because you're giving away free shit and people like when you give away free shit. So, kudos to them for like a really interesting way to, go after marketing and blend, this code redemption with traditional performance marketing. So it was pretty cool.
Step into the future of game monetization with Xsolla, the premier partner for game developers seeking to expand their reach and revenue. Xsolla provides a robust suite of tools designed to enhance user acquisition, manage subscriptions, and streamline payment solutions worldwide. Unlock new markets and maximize profitability through their customized, secure payment architecture and dedicated support team. Xsolla, powering game developers to achieve global success.
This podcast is brought to you by AppsFlyer. In today's digital world, understanding your app's journey from discovery to download is more than just insightful, it's essential. Enter AppsFlyer, the leader in mobile attribution and marketing analytics that allows you to measure the full potential of your marketing efforts, making every ad dollar work smarter. With AppsFlyer, that's your new reality. Dive deep into data-driven insights that reveal exactly where your users come from and how they'll interact with your app. AppsFlyer, where your app's potential meets performance. All right, Path of Exile 2. Telfer, back to you.
So Path of Exile 2 is releasing in early access on December 6th. Personally, I'm actually very excited for this one. Path of Exile 1 is just an incredibly well-crafted game. If you haven't already, watch their GDC video on their learnings and study their expansion design, especially if you're in the PvE space. They do some very impressive things about how much they remix. What I'm finding interesting about this release, though, is their approach to launch. So we were talking about, like, hey, how do games properly have launches? And actually in PvE space, they've notoriously had very bad launches. A good example here is actually Diablo, which had a very rough launch, took about 4 seasons to fix it. And despite sort of extensive pre-launch testing, betas, influencers ripping apart their endgame, they still had that struggle. Path of Exile is going into early access, and for all intents and purposes, early access for these games typically is your launch. Very rarely you can have a 1.0 release after an early access release, creating a larger spike. So the way that they're approaching this is that their early access will be paid only for a while. They're basically saying sometime in 2025. So creating a paid soft launch, which gives them access to a limited selection of content classes as they go live, hopefully allows them to perfect the game and then create a big going free 1.0 beat in the future when retention and loot is where it needs to be. So personally, big hopes for this one. I hope they can ride the wave actually that Diablo 4 created and expand that dungeon crawler and looter market.
What is the business model once they go free to play? Is it a pure cosmetic or is it pay to win?
I'm assuming it's the same thing as Path of Exile 1, which is cosmetic, pure cosmetic. But beyond that, beyond just Path of Exile 2, there actually is a ton of PC console releases coming out. So on December 6th, Marvel Rivals from NetEase is coming out, a hero shooter with Marvel characters. They're going gangbusters with Marvel partnerships. What was crazy, actually, there was ads in Marvel Snap for Marvel Rivals. And they're even having a Fortnite partnership coming up. But just to spite them, Delta Force from TWIG is coming out just before on December 5th.
It came today. I think it launched today.
Or yeah. It comes out the 5th, but it basically comes out on the 5th. There might be some time zone things going on.
Time zone thing. Yeah, maybe that's what's going on.
You live in the past over there in the US.
Yeah, sorry.
But Delta Force obviously is a very competent Battlefield and Tarkov mixed game.
I would like us to make some predictions on the Battle of the Eastern Shooters. So NetEase versus, Teamy, and Marvel Rivals versus Delta Force. Hero shooter versus the Battlefield extraction genre. Paul versus Tyson. Too soon. Didn't even watch.
Paul versus Tyson.
Did you watch the fight?
No. I'm a purist. I love fight sports. I will not watch that debacle.
Yeah, it was very sad. I was very pumped to see Mike Tyson again.
That is why I did not watch it.
Yeah, and it was a shit show. So I think I told you, my wife works at Fox, and so Fox Sports is a very big deal. And so they were all making fun of just how bad Netflix was at broadcasting the sporting event. It went down many times. And so anyway, so back to this. I think this is a super hard call to pick which one of these kind of wins this battle royale over the next couple of days. Not actually a battle royale because it's a Battlefield kind of game. Wrong pun. So there's been so much positive buzz with Rivals. It's been in beta over the last kind of year. Teamy is also, great because of what they do with Call of Duty Mobile. And, what I learned from Phil's podcast was that the GM of the TiMi studio who did Delta Force said that the team decided to pivot from mobile first to PC console when they realized it was really hard for them to get devs to do the quality of game that they wanted. And so they actually shifted to do PC console first. And which is why that's what the launch that you're seeing this week, and mobile comes like next year. So they actually delayed that. And so this is like a PC console versus PC console. But if I had to bet, I don't know what you guys think, but I'm going to go with Delta Force because Marvel Rivals has tough comparison to Overwatch. Everyone all day long is like, but versus Overwatch. And now there's a new player with Strinova, which is the anime hero shooter. And who knows if that's going to last, but that just launched and is getting a lot of attention. And so Overwatch players will likely give Rivals a bit of a shot, but at the end of the day, they always go back. So one of the things that I've learned when we were on League, we were always facing competition, Fortnite launching or Overwatch launching or any of these other big games. Apex, when that launched, we kind of see them always come back home. And they always, they go take a vacation, try the new thing, bring their friends, maybe a month later or so, people come back to the tried and true champion. And I feel like that's what it is with Overwatch. I guess you could say Call of Duty is that kind of in the world of Delta Force. But I don't know. I kind of edge in that direction. But anyone have thoughts on that? Like who might win?
Yeah, like I played Delta Force and I felt that it was a mobile first game.
Oh,
really?
It did feel like it wasn't quite at the same level as a Battlefield or a COD to me.
Can I change my answer?
This is my personal opinion. But like I still enjoyed playing it with my friends. Marvel Rivals, I didn't get a chance to play the betas. But I still look pretty skeptical at the hype during those times because I don't think it's exactly predictive of what will happen at the thing. So I'll have a think on it. And obviously I'll play, but I think it's too hard to call right now. Like the thing with Delta Force 2 is it's going after Tarkov and Battlefield. How do you build enough of a big enough audience from that versus Marvel Rivals?
No, I'll take Delta Force because it's on several platforms.
But if we're doing Steam CCU,
just
we need to figure out what the thing.
Okay, got it. I thought this was easy. Like if one is going to be on mobile, others are not, then it's an easy win.
No.
I watched the videos on Delta Force today because it came out. At least I saw a lot of stuff on LinkedIn being shared by Holtzman and some other folks from Tencent, and they all look really great. It had some interesting elements. Clearly, a ton of content. Like these guys don't mess around. Even the launch version has an insane amount of content, and I can only imagine the teams just churning out that content for all the battle passes and anything. Like everything will be good to go to run this game properly and to create further more content. So I wonder how ready the Marvel Rivals team and how much slower are they than the TiMi studio. Not only the fact that the TiMi studio has a ton of experience in working on Live Ops games, but also because they're working with a Marvel IP. So you have that slower, what do you call it, approval process?
Rivals is coming out with like 33 characters right now.
Yeah,
they're coming out quickly too. But I do get it that like my instinct will still be with Delta Force because I trust that Timmy's going to come out big swinging. Yeah. But I think with both of them, I'm still putting my skeptical hat on. Like, can either of these retain? But that's what I'm excited to see.
I'm voting for Marvel Rivals just quickly. For some reason, I think that is hitting your heart right now. Yeah.
Okay.
And we got the charts on Strinova, Supervive, and Spectre Divide. Spectre Divide is kind of flatlined now.
Yeah. So keep in mind, this is launch aligned. So Spectre Divide launched in, I think, beginning of September, versus Supervive, which just launched. This is from the ex-League team, Theorycraft, and has been out since November 21st. What's been impressive is actually the sentiment. So like Steam reviews, well over 90%.
Wow.
And CCU from launch is implying better than user retention. We've got the comparison here between Supernova, Strinova, and Spectre Divide. So you can see that it is sustaining at a higher level. But I think when we start to layer in things like finals and you look at it as a percentage of max CCU, it's basically in line with finals so far. So I think it's still important to continue to track. The challenge here is the scale. The scale remains small. It's about 30K and still has gravity associated with it. So we need to see them sustain their CCU and then start to grow. Overall, I was hoping this would be the story of a game that tapped into the League streamers and had a strong organic pull of the League community. And that's what I'm watching for, if they can go viral. The challenge here, as we talked about with League being heavily China-based, they have locked out of China and they have a NetEase partnership. So there's a possibility of a China-based relaunch in the future after they've got retention. So the challenge here is still similar to Spectre, right? Like 30K CCU, what can China do? This is a small team live ops and cosmetic only ARPDAO. And this is against the expectations of their Series A and B raise, which was 87.5 million, or basically 90 million. Mm-hmm. So what's great, it looks like they've got something retaining under there, which is a very promising sign. The challenge is how do you leverage that strong sentiment and really start siphoning that League players so you can scale?
I'm a little bit puzzled by Supervive. Like, I haven't played it. I mean, I'm not Chinese, so that's also probably the reason. Apparently, that's the 87% of the market. But I'm kind of like puzzled about like what Phil would call what's the game thesis for Supervive, because essentially it is a MOBA with battle royale component. So the map gets smaller and you're playing a MOBA in a little bit of a different way. And was trying to understand like what was the compelling strategy that the founders were chasing here, because like on the product side, they essentially have a twist and they have a fraction of the content that League of Legends would have. They kind of look similar to me, at least to an untrained eyes, very much, the archers, the shield characters, very, similar style, of course, because it's a MOBA. And they're coming in with a game that has a small gameplay twist, and they have less content, and their marketing is kind of like build it and they will come, and they've built a great game, but we'll see how long that lasts. So I'm always wondering when people leave these companies, especially the type of founding team that left Riot, they're very experienced, legendary game makers. I think the executive producer was like Halo and then League of Legends for a long time. Yeah, exactly. They raised a ton of money, but still 90 million is not nearly enough. That's like one episode of Arcane.
That's a good one, Mishka.
No, but for real, like the question that when Adam was showing the chart is like they had a great start and now the game is rapidly declining, so they kind of like need to grind it out and find whatever is that level and then slowly build from that. And always the question is like, do the founders want to do that, or are they were their expectation to come out of the gate and kind of start the new League of Legends and start dominating? Do they have the tenacity to run a smaller game? Because they've been running such a massive games before. And like, what's the point of running a game with like 10,000 players when before that you were running, games with millions upon millions of Chinese playing it every day? I don't know. It will be interesting to follow. Of course, the founders are good. Whatever happens, whether this game succeeds or fails, this company is going to get acqui-hired.
Look,
but yeah.
What are we talking about here? Like, there is no fucking market for MOBAs in the West, right? Why are we even talking about this? $90 million for a game that has a target market of like 5% of the overall install base of League. It's like they're playing League. They don't give a shit about these stuff. Like, there's just no way they can maintain a big enough business to justify a $90 million fucking investment, dude. It's crazy. This crazy talk,
Are we just waiting for them to launch in China, right? To see, like, that's going to be the last card. But if it's on Steam, like they can play it, right?
I don't know how that works, but unless they're able to region lock it, maybe they can. I don't know. But yeah, what Phil found out was that they have a publishing deal with NetEase to publish it correctly or publish it broadly, which, again, like this team knows League and intricately well. They know the opportunity in China, see above the 43 million people watching, the end of season world championships. So that's going to be the big opportunity for them. I think that what I learned, back in the day at EA, and this is a really long time ago, is I had to work on a competitive MOBA title. I think it was called, forgot the name, the code name because it never made it out of beta. And, one of the things when I was there and I probably got in a little bit of trouble is I said, listen, I don't think we should be doing this. I don't think that there is enough room in the market for another MOBA going up against League of Legends and what they have captured. And, true to, I guess, my prediction at the time, after we did a bunch of consumer insights, was there isn't really another, there really isn't room for this. And so the game actually never made it out of beta, and EA has never gone back and tried to compete in that space.
I remember that game. I remember like vaguely. That was almost like 10 years ago.
No, it wasn't Stormgate. I mean, the name was called Battlegrounds when I was on it, but I don't remember. There was another name in the beta because it went into beta after I left. And so anyway, that just kind of goes to show you that, a little bit of what again, that was a while ago, but it is a tough market. But again, if anyone can do it, it is the people that ran.
Nobody can do it.
No.
Okay. Well, nobody can do it. Okay.
No.
Fine. I was trying to be like give them a little bit of.
Okay. Let me just. This is as crystal clear to me as possible. Like the only way that this is ever going to work is that they change the business model. If it continues to be cosmetic, non-pay to win type model, no one's ever going to make a mark in this business, right? Because there is just no business there. If they try to innovate and create a different business model around it, so it's more pay to progress, pay to win, then maybe that gets interesting. But like they just cannot survive on this small audience with a cosmetic economy. Like it just doesn't make any sense. That playbook does not work. Only works at scale.
It only works at scale. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that people don't really realize is that innovation of cosmetics only works when you have billions, just multi-millions of players. Yeah.
But that's the point. These people came from Riot. Like they know intricately how the business model works, how many players, etc. And I'm kind of confused. Is like knowing all of that, they exit the company that already has this game, and they're like, we're going to do it again outside of it with fraction of the resources. It's a confusing combination, not because you leave a company to do a similar game outside of it, but just like knowing how impossible pretty much it is to create a MOBA that succeeds in the West, and then essentially they would have to break it in China with a PC MOBA.
Yep. And players already have the other choice of Honor of Kings too on mobile.
Yeah,
so not only are you going against League and Wild Rift on mobile and Honor of Kings on mobile
and Dota
now you got this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Got some great stories for you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Later.